The Atlantic has released some explosive new revelations about the massive gap between Donald Trump's apparent public and private reaction to the tragic murder of the 20-year-old Texas Army private Vanessa Guillén in April of 2020. So at the time, after it was found out that she had been not only brutally murdered, but her body had been buried by the killer and his girlfriend, and there was concerns about a cover-up, and a lot of people have died at this base and in this area. A lot of concern, especially in Texas. People were freaked out about this. So Trump met with the family. And in the meeting, he maintained a dignified posture and expressed sympathy to Guillén's mother, saying, "I saw what happened to your daughter, Vanessa, who was a spectacular person and respected and loved by everybody, including in the military." Again, that's starting to get into accepting the complete lack of responsibility of superior officers to have looked into a lot of this. And that'll be a theme of this story, that Donald Trump does not ever care about structural issues. But anyway, later in the conversation, he made a promise, quote, "If I can help you out with the funeral, I'll help. I'll help you with that. I'll help you out financially, I'll help you." He repeated it so many times as if only to make a mockery of the fact that he eventually would not help. But he kept saying it over and over and over again. And so the family's attorney responded, "I think the military will be paying, taking care of it," to which Trump replied, "Good, they'll do a military. That's good. If you need help, I'll help you out." Now, bear in mind, he's saying all of this on TV for context. Later, a reporter covering the meeting asked Trump, "Have you offered to do that for other families before?" And he responded, I have personally. I have to do it personally. I can't do it through government." The reporter then asked, "So you've written checks to help for other families before this?" He turned to the family still present and said, I have, because some families need help. Maybe you don't need help from a financial standpoint. I have no idea what. I just think it's a horrific thing that happened. And if you did need help, I'll be there with you." So look, I can personally doubt whether he wrote any checks to anybody ever. That's not what this story is about. Just bear that in mind. So flash forward, there's an Oval Office meeting later that year, December 4th, when obviously Donald Trump has a lot of stuff in his mind. He's really in his feelings about having lost the election. And so he asked for an update on the investigation into the killing, the possibility of a cover-up or a lack of investigation. And so at a certain point, according to two people there, Trump asked, "Did they bill us for the funeral? What did it cost?" According to attendees and to contemporaneous notes of the meeting taken by a participant, so this is well documented, an aide answered, "Yes, we received a bill. The funeral cost $60,000. Trump became angry. "It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury an effing Mexican." That is what multiple people said he said. $60,000. To which the billionaire responded, "It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury an effing Mexican." And then he told Mark Meadows, "Don't pay it." He later, still thinking about, by the way, he's in the middle of trying to overthrow the results of an election. But he comes back to it later in the day to say, "Can you believe it? Effing people trying to rip me off." I haven't done the actual math on it, but I imagine he's a billionaire. He has more money than you and I. But I imagine for you and I, $60,000 is what? A penny comparatively? 2 pennies? 3 pennies? I don't know how many pennies. It's nothing. It's what you find in the couch. But it bothered him so much that it would go to a funeral for this spectacular person that everybody loved, according to him. And it angered him so much that he said that. By the way, I love that this comes out the same day that Laura Trump is on Charlemagne's show talking about how insane it is to say that he's a racist.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
Multiple sources. Now we'll get into those who dispute this story, but Francesca, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when I read this, I was just full of rage and disgust at this person who keeps on telling us who he is, keeps on saying these things, whether it's the S-hole countries about any country where brown people live, to saying the N-word in private, to now this. And, there's many, many layers of this kind of hate and racism, but I guess I just want to focus on one, which is that this was a soldier. This was a woman who should have been protected by the military and instead felt too fearful to report her ranking soldier and his many, many months of sexual harassment towards her. The US government let her down. The US government let her family down, and the US government lets many, many officers' families and soldiers' families down when they don't actually create a safe space to report when someone is harassing you and threatening your life, possibly. And so that's what ended in with this. She was burned, apparently. She was,
Yes.
and she was dismembered,
Yes.
and she was found months later. And then Donald Trump not only, forget the doesn't cost that much to bury a Mexican, this woman was already desecrated. She was denied a proper burial. Not only was she bludgeoned to death, denied a proper burial, denied the respect, denied all of this. And now he's too cheap to give her that respect on the grounds that, well, at the end of the day, she's just a Mexican. I mean, I have so much contempt for this POS.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, people who vote for him, you should know this story. You should know this about him. Are you proud of that? Is that cool for you? It's one thing to say, oh, they're bringing crime, they're Mexicans, they're this, they're that, they're undocumented because they're immigrants, right? Let's put that aside. This woman served her country. She wanted to go into the military. She was excited about it. And she was murdered by a fellow service member.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. This is the sort of story when I saw it, I just thought, this is like when people think like, oh, yeah, everybody focuses too much on Trump. He's not that different. No, he's among the worst people on our planet. He is an absolute monster, and I cannot wait for us to be past him. By the way, you don't like that you're being charged $60,000. First of all, that is entirely consistent with everything that we know about Donald Trump. He doesn't like paying bills for literally anything. What her family's national origin has to do with literally any of this, I don't understand. I have a hard time putting myself into the perspective of a hardcore racist. Why that would have anything to do with anything, I do not understand. Now, I do want to talk about the response to this, because I saw someone in the chat was saying this has been debunked because the entire family said that it didn't happen. And there are like 4 different things about that are untrue. So the lawyer and a member of the family, a sister to Vanessa Guillén, says that they don't like this being politicized, and they say that Donald Trump was entirely respectful. And we can actually put up Mayor Guillén's comment, saying that they think that either the reporter at the Atlantic is exploiting her death for politics. It's hurtful and disrespectful, and said that she voted for Trump. See, here's the thing about that. That does not in any way dispute that Donald Trump said what he said in the White House. You know why? Because they weren't there. They can't dispute it because they weren't there. You know where they were? They were at the White House with Donald Trump in that meeting on TV, and he was entirely respectful there. On TV, when he was doing what some might call a photo op, he was very respectful. So everything that by the way, if she doesn't like the story being brought up, either because she supports Trump and thinks it might hurt him, or she doesn't want to be reminded of it, or she doesn't want to believe that it's true, or even doesn't believe that it's true, all that totally legitimate. But neither she nor any of the other members of the family, and I haven't even seen any other members of the family dispute this, were not at this meeting that multiple people have attested that Donald Trump said that. So they cannot debunk it. They weren't there to do so. And if you are trying to convince yourself that anything about this story is inconsistent with everything that we know about Donald Trump, well, that's Trump derangement syndrome. That's all that is. Donald Trump is a massive racist. He does not like paying his bills. This is entirely consistent with all this. By the way, being explicitly disrespectful to America's service members is the most consistent thing about Donald Trump going back literally decades. He has said the top 20 most disrespectful things about our armed forces out of any politician ever. He's got all top 20 of them. He has never respected people who died in service to America. Super clear, okay? And so she doesn't like the story. She is entirely entitled to that opinion. She and her family have been through an absolutely reprehensible thing that happened to her sister. And you have the attorney saying this supposed conversation that Trump had would have occurred over 4 years ago. Why a story about it now? So that's basically saying, why is it being released now? I understand being bothered about that. And saying it's a supposed conversation, sure, we don't know for sure that it's true, but the attorney also was not there to attest to it, as the multiple people who said that it happened did. By the way, the attorney did say there was never a check that was sent to the family by Donald Trump. The attorney confirmed that. Now, thankfully, the military as well as charitable donations did pay for the funeral in the end. So the family did thankfully get the money that they needed. But to be clear, Donald Trump did not pay for it. Super clear, the attorney even confirmed that. And finally, Mark Meadows says that he was there for the conversation and it didn't happen. So he at least was in the room. So he can dispute that it happened. He's also a massive confirmed liar who is in top consideration to be Donald Trump's chief of staff again. So
Yes.
no, I don't trust at all what he has to say about this. Now we get to, he said, she said, but at least he was in the room. I also don't think there's any reason to believe what he said. And so again, we will never know for sure. They weren't literally bugging the room, and Donald Trump will never tell the truth about this. But I, for one, believe it. I think it's consistent with everything about Donald Trump that we know. Francesca, what do you think? Just to be clear about the debunking, there's no debunk. To the extent that anyone is, Mark Meadows is attempting to debunk it. That is the only aspect of this that you can even put in that category.
The aspect of this, the entire aspect of this story that feels odd to me is that Donald Trump would even offer to pay for someone's funeral. Like, that to me seems wild. And lo and behold, according to the attorney, he didn't. So there you go. It doesn't seem odd that he would promise in front of the cameras, but that he would actually do it seems incredibly odd to me. And yes, that's why I agree. This statement does fit with what he said. And here's the thing that right-wingers will say. Oh, well, if the sister wasn't offended by this and doesn't think it's happened and is angry and voted for Trump, then everyone needs to shut the hell up. Because in their small little pea brains, unless the racism, unless the offense happens to you personally, unless their sister is gay, well then, okay, I guess gay people deserve to not be discriminated against. Like, that's only when it affects them. That's not how racism and oppression work. Number one, it's statistically proven and exists and seethes throughout all of our structures. But number two, what about every other Mexican American and Latino in this country who is appalled and disgusted, many of whom you saw ask Donald Trump questions at that Univision town hall and were deeply unsatisfied with his answers? What about them? Knowing that the president, a guy who's running for office, thinks this about them, about their ethnicity and nationality, it's just disgusting. So like, again, in the, well, the black guy laughed at my racist joke. Oh, cool, right? Like it's just, again, it's so short-sighted. And you're totally right about Meadows. There's the one guy who's like still with Trump. And it does matter that this story came out 4 years later. I think it sucks that it came out so many years later because remember, after January 6th, they were fleeing like rats on a ship, the Trumpers.
That's
and
true.
Now everyone's back into the fold again because he might win.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm gonna close with this. By the way, bringing this up, this is the sort of thing that I think should affect people's opinions of a politician. Us bringing it up here, I don't have any hope or expectation that this would affect anyone's opinion. I think that at this point, you've been through 10 years of Donald Trump. If you at this point think that he is not a racist, let's be clear, there is literally nothing in this universe that could happen that would change your opinion. To be very clear, either you just do not have the physical capacity to understand who Donald Trump is, or more likely a combination of that and racism is not a very important thing to you. Let's be very clear about that. Laura Trump can say he's not a racist. She doesn't care because it doesn't matter because racism is not a thing that affects her. So why would anyone care about it at all? So we bring it up because I fear that this is true. I fear that a man like this could be president again, not because I think it'll change anyone's opinion. I think we as an electorate and as a country and as a democracy are far too broken at this point for that to happen. But even if almost everyone else in media no longer gives a damn about what is true or not, I will still care about it even if it's utterly pointless to.